Hey guys, it's Vince and Drew with Power 5 Fanatics, and we just completed week 11 in college football, and very exciting week. Actually, in my opinion, I would say Saturday was the best college football day that I've experienced anyway, as far as watching games, because there was a lot of
For this season, yeah.
Yeah, this season there was a lot of close games, and of course you had the big one, and which was an upset, the LSU over Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So there was there was a lot going on, and I like having all those great afternoon games too, because being an old guy, a lot of times I'll fall asleep at night, and I would miss those. But so I got to watch all these cool games. So, anyways. We want to do a video where we're going to reorganize our top 25 based on the Power 5 Fanatics. Of course, today is Tuesday, so they'll be coming out with the playoff championship top 25 this evening, and we'll see how ours. I would assume ours is probably going to be a little bit different in the top four. I'll explain that here in a sec. The top three, ours will probably be the same as theirs, I would guess. Ohio State, we got one. Now, the only thing I can think of different is if the playoff committee has LSU number one, which could happen.
Yeah.
We just think Ohio State. I know the resume hasn't been as strong as LSU's, but you know when you're beating people by 50 points, in my opinion, that's just as good as beating a great team by 6 points.
Well, yeah, and I think it depends on how the committee's going to value, LSU's win over Alabama. But one thing that's kind of underrated about Ohio State's schedule so far is that it is ranked in the top 20 in strength of schedule.
Yeah. Well, the Big Ten's very solid, and you know you got teams like, they of course they've beaten everybody bad. I think they've won every game by 24 points or more. They beat Indiana already this year. They did play. And Indiana's a great example. They're one of those teams in the middle but they're better than they've been. A lot like, I'd say a lot better. I mean, a lot like Illinois or obviously Minnesota. So some of these teams that traditionally are looking forward to basketball at this point are actually playing some really good football and will probably be making bowl games without a doubt. So
yeah, Illinois is in a bowl, or they're bowl eligible for the first time in a long time as well. They just hit 6 games, 6 wins. So
the Big Ten's a lot like the Big 12 in my opinion. There's a lot of teams in the middle.
A lot of depth, yeah.
A lot of depth, and so I think you got to take that into consideration. But it's also just the way they're beating teams down. Their offense and their defense, complete team, just seems better than everybody else at this point. 2, we got LSU.
And this is more like 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
You know, this
it's
is
pretty sad
pretty razor thin.
when you beat Alabama and you don't move up on our poll.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to,
I know.
Ohio State didn't do anything to, they just beat Maryland 73-15. So
I think Alabama's a little overrated too, I think everybody would say that at this point.
Yeah.
Offense,
not to take anything away from LSU's win, because that was a huge win, and they should celebrate it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It's just Alabama, they haven't played anybody, and they haven't really been battle tested either, and I think that hurt them in that game. That's another problem, when you're when you have an easy non-conference. But they're probably not as bad as they look, though.
No.
But I think LSU definitely proved that they are better.
Yeah.
3, we got Clemson, who continues to improve every week. Of course, they beat NC State 55-10, which doesn't really surprise anybody, but they should beat NC State 55-10.
Yeah.
So their offense has been getting better as the years going on, and Trevor Lawrence is looking more like the player that everybody thought he was going to be.
And they're starting to look more like one of these more complete teams. Early in the season, we saw their offense struggle pretty mightily in some points, with the interceptions and, the turnovers. Really, the passing game was kind of the issue. Now it's starting to turn into, you're starting to see this offense kind of evolve a little bit into what it needs to be. And the defense is finally starting to mesh. They lost all that talent last offseason to the NFL. And, they had, 3 first-round picks and then 4 first 3-round picks. that left, and they had to, replace those guys. It looks like those guys are starting to come into their own here and make a name for themselves.
Right.
So,
And, the only problem I see with Clemson, I'd say there's at least a 90% chance they're going to win out probably at this point. I don't know what the true percentage is. That's just what I would say.
If I had to bet any team was going to make the playoffs,
it would be them.
Yeah.
But the only problem I see is, when they get there, they're not going to be battle tested like some of these other teams, and sometimes that can bite you there at the end because you get in a dogfight with somebody and their cornerbacks are just as good as your cornerbacks and your receivers, and it's just, and all of a sudden things aren't going the way they should go, and you don't know how to respond is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to they're going to run into obviously these great teams in the playoffs, because I do think they're going to be in the playoff. Here's where I would say the playoff committee is going to have tonight would be Alabama at 4
or Georgia.
Maybe, I kind of doubt Georgia because their loss.
Right. The loss isn't the same. Yeah.
Right. I think they're going to have Alabama. I may be wrong, but we don't believe Alabama should be 4. We think Oregon should. And this is probably where we're going to be different. We may not be, but
maybe some controversy here. They just
they were off, of course, this week.
Yeah, and their loss was at the beginning of the season, and they've been able to rebound. That's the other thing. A lot of Alabama just got off a loss, and of course it was to LSU. I mean, it was a.
I just like Oregon's resume better at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say, well, LSU was a better loss than Auburn was with Oregon, but that game was the very first game of the season, and since then, I mean, they've played better teams than Alabama's played.
Yeah.
They played Washington. Trying to think, as far as like really quality teams.
Pretty much anyone in the North they're going to have to play.
Yeah,
so.
And anyways, what I'm getting at is I just think their resume at this point looks better than Alabama's. That's the only reason I would. That's why we got Oregon at 4. At 5, of course, we do have Alabama.
And Alabama's going to have a chance to, show what they're worth too, because they still have to play their rival in Auburn. And that's who beat Oregon. So if they beat, Oregon, you can, you don't want to do a whole lot of that, cross.
They probably need some style points too. Anytime you get a loss, I think you got to have some style points.
I agree. Yeah.
And not winning 32-31, but winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns against Auburn. That's kind of games they're going to need. 6, we got Georgia, who, their hiccup they had is really hurting them at this point, and it's going to continue to hurt them. But that's college football. They're doing everything they can to bounce back. They really, they beat Missouri the way you would think they would.
They
27-0, and so everything's starting to click again. Their offense is still sometimes a little
inconsistent.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah.
It's just. At times they just kind of they're going to stick in the mud for a quarter or two, but their defense has been really good. But 27-0, it's a good win. 7, we got Utah, who's also off. Seemed like all the Pac-12 was off last week. Everything's in front of them. If they win out, I think they're going to be in the playoff. Whoever wins that Pac-12, if they don't lose, whether it's Oregon or Utah, I think you got to put them in.
And I think it helps if both of them don't lose. Like, if both of them are, one-loss teams when they go into the conference championship, the winning team of that conference is going to have a really good shot, especially after Oklahoma's lost. Alabama has a loss on the resume. We'll see how far they drop. Probably not that far. But it's kind of opened the door. Notre Dame a few weeks ago got knocked out. So it's kind of opened the door a little bit more for these Pac-12 teams.
Yeah, the Pac-12
to position themselves.
This is not what I would have thought 2 months ago, if you would have told me that our Power 5 Fanatic top 25 would have 2 Pac-12 teams in the top 7, I would have said you're crazy, because at that point it didn't look like that. It didn't look like one team would be in the top 7.
Yeah, and I think preseason we saw this. We were talking about. I think we had.
But both of them.
Then a few weeks later, Utah loses to USC, and we think at that time that Clay Helton, is on the hot seat, which he is. That's kind of a bad loss.
And then, of course, Oregon had
Oregon
already
out
lost.
the gate lost, so it kind of like the perception
Things
changed,
have
but
rebounded.
Now it's starting to kind of come back together for them a little bit.
8, we got Minnesota, which is probably going to be higher than the playoff committee will have them.
Yeah.
But the reason we got them at 8, because we had them at 12 last week, and you beat Penn State, you're going to move up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we got them at 8. I think they're very solid team. I mean, Penn State was a signature win for them.
Yeah.
It's incredible that this is the first time they're 9-0 since 1904.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if any of our viewers here have been alive that long, but that, if I do the math, that's 115 years. But anyways, that's, the cars were just being invented then.
Yeah.
Since they were 9-0. So pretty special season no matter what happens the rest of the way for them. But who knows? They might shake it up. It's just going to be hard to get out of get it past Ohio State if it ends up those two in the championship game. Number 9, we got the team they beat. And Penn State, it's just, their defense has been great all year. Their offense has been a little shaky at times. Finally came back and bit them a little bit in that game.
Yeah,
of course, Minnesota is really good.
I saw, I kind of thought that Penn State, got out-schemed sometimes in this game. I was very impressed with P.J. Fleck, by the way, in this Minnesota game.
Minnesota was never, I don't think they were ever behind in that game. It was 7-7, I believe. I think they were ahead the whole game. But anyway, we still got them in the top 10. A lot of things are going to happen for them to get in the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're going to have to win out, and then they're going to have
Well, they need to beat Ohio State. If they do that, and then they win the conference championship against Minnesota and get to redeem their loss, well, you might be looking at it then.
Yeah.
That
Actually, the one-loss teams, they may have one of the easier routes.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say easy. They could beat Ohio State,
and win out the rest
but
of the
it
way,
may
too.
be they may control their destiny more than maybe every team except Alabama. But Alabama, I think, may have to have a little bit of help. But anyway, number 10 to round out the top 10, we got Oklahoma. They're going to need a lot of help.
Yeah.
And they're going to need to.
Especially after, this
It's
past
going to be a
weekend.
style show for them the rest of the way, too, because they're playing Baylor this week in Waco, which is the biggest game they've had there in a while. I know, they've had some pretty good seasons, but I still say this is bigger than even when they played TCU back in 2014 or whenever that was, just because this is Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And TCU is TCU, and, this is a blue blood program, and if they take care of business, this is one of their biggest would be one of their biggest wins ever.
Yeah, I mean, this would basically seal up their chances to. I mean, they're already pretty much in the conference championship, but they still have to. This would seal it up basically. If they can beat Oklahoma, then they could lose to Texas and they'd still be in the conference championship. So
yeah, it's a big if though. Let's
Yeah.
get real. I haven't seen what the
I think the line
The Vegas
wasn't at
line.
like 11 or something.
Oklahoma
Maybe it wasn't. I don't know if it was that. I can't
maybe
even.
a 7.
I haven't looked at it,
Yeah,
so
but Oklahoma
take our
was
word on it,
favored, and which they should be because Oklahoma, in my opinion, is going to beat Baylor 8 times out of 10 if they play each other. But Baylor just got to have this one game where they do it. But anyways, we're really jumping ahead talking about Baylor. Number 11, we got Florida, and man, they were like. Against Vanderbilt, they said, "Okay, we're going to show everybody what we're about."
Yeah.
56-0 later, they hung half 100 on Vanderbilt, and that was that. Those are the kind of wins they need to move up. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're out of the playoff picture, but still, they can end up with a better bowl situation and just a great season, which they're having. The team behind them, Auburn, same thing with them. They're pretty much out of the national title picture at this
Yeah,
point.
but the crazy thing about Auburn, if you're talking about
But they don't
two
care if they
lost
can beat
teams.
Alabama.
2 lost teams, they're playing Georgia this weekend, and then they still have Alabama down the road.
I just don't know if a 2-loss team is going to get into the playoff. I mean,
I don't either, especially
could.
this
I'm
year.
not-
But
mathematically,
with that kind
it's
of
possible.
with that kind of resume,
it'd be a solid
to,
resume.
have beaten.
And their losses are
you know.
against Florida and LSU. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty good losses, but a lot of stuff would have to happen. I mean, like the walls would just have to start crumbling down to what we believe college football is about right now. You'd have to have teams like Ohio State stumble, and Oregon. I mean, you'd have to have a lot of stuff going on.
I also think they would need to win the conference championship too to have 2 losses and still get in.
Definitely.
And, since they've already lost to LSU, that's probably.
I don't even think they can
unless,
get into the conference championship because of the LSU loss.
Well, if LSU, if they just implode, then they still have a chance. If they can beat
if you look at their
Georgia and
schedule,
Alabama.
LSU should not lose again until the conference champ. I can't remember who they're playing, but they're going to be heavy favorites.
I think they play Ole Miss and then A&M.
Yeah. Do they still play A&M?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're going to be heavy favorites, LSU, the rest of the way. So it would have to be just something crazy. Like I said, the world as we know it would have to be totally different.
It's probably not going to happen, but this 2-loss team probably has the best chance of any 2-loss team to maybe kind of spoil the party.
13, we got Wisconsin, who had their big win against their rival, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And that pretty much turned out, it was a little more high scoring than I thought. It was 24-22. I was thinking 17-14, so it wasn't a whole lot more, or even 14-10. It's kind of what I was
talking about that much.
That was like a high flying greatest show on.
It was actually a pretty fun game to watch
on turf.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty fun game to watch.
For those two teams, that's a lot of points. But Iowa played them tough because Iowa is tough. They just
couldn't do it at the end.
Yeah, they couldn't get it done at the end. And playing at home helped Wisconsin. 14, we got Michigan, who was off. And I tell you, if you want a late season award or mid to late season award, it'd probably go to Michigan for how are we going to save our season from total chaos. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've done. Their offense has finally turned the corner. Right now, I don't think anybody wants to play them. I'll be honest with you. I mean, they could give Ohio State fits at this point. If anybody can, they may be the one to do it. Now, I'm not sure where they're playing at this year.
It's in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, so I'm not predicting an upset, but I don't think they're the team people want to play at this point because Harbaugh's really got them playing pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he got it switched around pretty late in the season. They could have given up after the Penn State loss.
Exactly.
And instead they came back the next week.
I've been on their bandwagon just because I had them picked to be in to win the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Even though that's not going to happen, but they have responded, and you got to give them credit for that. Okay, we finally get to Baylor. Here, I'll put it right here. And we just don't believe of the undefeated teams. I'm talking about the ones that aren't in the top 4, or top 3, I guess. When I'm mainly talking about Minnesota, Baylor, we think Minnesota is definitely a better squad at this point. Yeah. And plus, they had a much better win beating Penn State. So this is, put up or shut up time for Baylor. My problem with them all year is, they just barely win games. They go to triple overtime with TCU. They had a non-call or a penalty, or I guess it was a.
Yeah, it was a fumble.
Yeah, it was a fumble, but they called a penalty. They said no, we blown it. Anyway,
snap or
it was a mistake by the refs against Texas Tech. They had a last-second field goal against Iowa State. Mm-hmm. I don't know what their average win is, 5, 4. It's not much. So it's just if you look at their games, it just seems like fortune's been on their side, and that happens sometimes. And I'm not taking anything away from Matt Rule and Baylor, because considering where they were 2 years ago. Even if they don't win another game, this has been a great season for them. I just don't think they belong in the discussion at this point. Now, they can prove me wrong. If they beat Oklahoma, I'll shut up.
This is the week right here. I just think the biggest issue with Baylor is they haven't really been tested yet, in my opinion. Like, they haven't I mean, what I'm trying to say is they've been tested by weaker
They
opponents.
just don't look that great when they.
So I would
when
like
they
to
play.
see them.
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
I'd like to see them play like.
I'm not
some more-
anti-Baylor. I'm just seeing it the way it is, and I've watched a lot of their games this year, and they don't look like they have it all together offensively. They run the ball pretty good. Sometimes they have trouble throwing it. Their defense is on and off. 1 week they're only giving up 14 points, but then the next week they're giving up 35.
Yeah.
Oh, the other win they had, which is kind of a red flag. I mean, they beat West Virginia at home 17-14.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Well, then they went to triple overtime with TCU this past weekend too.
So it's just you add all this up, and if you just the eyeball test, you're thinking, well, look, they're not going to win the Big 12, at least in my opinion. But like I said, we'll quit knocking on Baylor. If they beat Oklahoma, I'll shut up and say, hey, they're gonna win the Big 12. Next at 16, we got Notre Dame.
Yep.
Which took care of Duke.
What was it, 38-3 or something?
I don't think it was that good.
It was something like that. 38.
38-7.
Yeah.
It was that good. And of course I know Duke is they're not the worst team in the ACC, but they're kind of in the middle somewhere. So all things said, pretty good win, kind of what you would think Notre Dame at this point would do. They bounced back a little bit, especially defensively.
Yeah.
As the season's moved on.
They kind of needed a win like this because the week before they beat, I think it was Virginia Tech 21-20.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just
even though Virginia Tech's really
they kind of
they've rebounded.
I think they're 6-3 now.
Yeah, they have rebounded in a big way. Virginia Tech.
This was
more what you would think the number 16 team in the nation would do.
And they came out, a lot quicker this week, where they were scoring fast and they looked like they were prepared for this game. They didn't sleep on Duke. They were ready to go in this game, and I thought that was an impressive win for Notre Dame.
I did too. 17, we got Memphis, which was office week.
Yeah, they had the emotional win against SMU on, was it ESPN or no? It was ABC or something. It was the night game.
Yeah,
on
right now they're probably the favorite still in the AAC as far as winning that conference. Next, we got Cincinnati, who just continues to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think are they 8-1 right now?
Yeah, I think so. They've only lost to Ohio State.
It's hard to spell Cincinnati. I don't think that's right, but anyways, they beat UConn 48-3, and I know you're like, well, that's just UConn, but they just keep winning, and they're having a really great season.
Yeah.
19 school. I don't even think these guys are in the top 25 on the playoff committee. They were off this week, so I think we kept them pretty. Actually, I think they moved up just from attrition in front of them, but. We think they're pretty good. Indiana, we got them at 19. 20, we dropped Iowa down to 20.
Yeah.
This is
wasn't a bad loss that they took.
No.
They played Wisconsin on the road, and they fought well with them. It's just, the better team won on Saturday.
I would say their defense, in my opinion, I kind of like it better than Wisconsin. It's just
it seems to be a little more consistent.
Yeah. But
week after
the problem is they're consistently not good on offense either, and it's really bit them in the rear end this year because, 22 points is actually not bad for them.
Yeah.
Their average game is, maybe, I don't know what they're averaging, but it's not a lot. 18, 20 points, I don't know what it is. But, 22 is not bad for them, but it's just they're having a hard time scoring this year, which is a shame because their defense is really good.
Yeah.
21, we got Texas, who's moved back into our poll with their late heroics against Kansas State, 27-24. I believe they're 6-3 now, Drew. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they're still in the Big 12 race. They're going to need Oklahoma to beat Baylor.
Yeah, they're
obviously going to have to win out at that point. So they do have a shot. So. Anyway, we definitely believe they're top 25.
Yeah.
22, we got a team that did they beat? I'm trying to remember, Drew. It was a while back. They beat Oklahoma State, Texas.
Texas beat Oklahoma State, yeah.
And that's one reason we got them right below Texas. But Oklahoma State's also 6-3, And they were off this week, by the way, but they've just looked better and better in the second half of this season. And mainly it's their defense. Chuba Hubbard and their offense has been good since day one.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard doesn't get enough, attention, respect. He doesn't get enough credit for what they're doing. The guy needs to be, if the team was better around him, he would be a Heisman contender. The guy is incredible.
Yeah, if they were, 9-1 or whatever right now, or 8-1 instead of 6-3, that's exactly what would be happening. But as we all know, it's hard to win a Heisman when you got 3 losses. But
and this is just a Mike Gundy team, where they start off, they get behind, you kind of forget about them, and then all of a sudden they start racking together some wins.
And I don't know where they're playing Oklahoma this year, but that's going to be a tough game for Oklahoma. Wherever it's at.
I think it might be in Norman.
Just because it's a rivalry, and they are good this year, Oklahoma State. And, the thing about Chuba Hubbard, I think he's probably the best running back they've had since Barry Sanders. Now, Barry did not win the Heisman. I'm pretty sure. And I think he was.
That was a long time ago. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to think back because that was about 30 years ago. But he had one of those seasons where he had like 2,200 yards or whatever.
He was incredible.
Barry Sanders, but he's having the same kind of season. But it was the same scenario. The rest of their team, wasn't as good as, Oklahoma and some of those other teams back in 1988. And that hurt his chance. I'm pretty sure he didn't win the Heisman. If I'm wrong there, let me know.
Interesting stat.
I don't have a Google in front of me, but I don't think he did. I was alive then. But he's the best running back they've had since then. He's a pretty special guy, and he's going to be playing at the next level.
Interesting stat on Chuba, too. He's the only running back that has rushed for 200 yards against Gary Patterson team. That happened a few weeks ago, but Gary Patterson's been coaching
and he's been coaching a long time.
17, 18 years. He's never given up 200 yards to a rusher, and Chuba Hubbard did that.
Well,
so
it doesn't
kind of
surprise
says
me.
something about the guy. He's really good.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when he's playing or when you're watching him, he doesn't look all that spectacular. And then you look up and you're like, oh, he's got 160 yards. And we're in the third quarter. But it's just that's what he does. He doesn't rip off a lot of 80-yard runs and stuff, but it's just like it's 6, it's 8, it's 15.
And
here's another 8.
I mean, they make sure they're getting the ball to him. They're not throwing it.
I mean, he averages, I don't know what he averages a carry, 6 or 7 yards a carry or whatever it is, but he's pretty special. 23, we got Kansas State. Speaking of Kansas State, their loss against Texas dropped them down.
It was on the road, so it was a tough place to play. They just come off a big win against,
they beat Kansas. Before then, it was
Oklahoma. So
they're a good squad, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Then we got Boise, which barely beat Wyoming. That was 20-17. So they're hovering, like debating if they were going to be in our top 25. We left them in there. They've kind of had that season. They peak a little bit, and you're like, oh man, and then they regress, or they have a win.
But they're still winning games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's hard to jump on their bandwagon.
Yeah.
25, we got SMU. They did not move up because they won, but they're such a funny team. They have like no defense right now, but they got all the offense in the world. I mean, they beat East Carolina 59-51. Now, East Carolina is a pretty good squad. They took somebody the distance the week before. Gosh, who was that? Was it UCF? I can't remember, but it was the same kind of game. East Carolina's really pretty good squad. Offensively, they're real good. But SMU, that's been their MO.
Their MO just outscoring the opponent.
They'll just outscore you, and however many points it takes, it seems like they get it done. I mean, I think are they 9-1 now, or have they played 10 games?
Yeah.
Pretty special season in Dallas for them. Well, guys, that's our top 25, Power 5 Fanatics style. So you can compare it to the playoff top 25 that comes out this evening. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell because we're going to be putting some new videos out. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.